In this week's One Big Thing in Livestock Markets, we're going to go back to a topic we haven't had to talk about in a couple of years, and that's feed costs. You know, if you think about it, we go back to the last big drought in the Corn Belt, 2012, 2013, when corn prices and feed costs for livestock really skyrocketed to record high levels. Then, once those feed costs started declining, we really saw the calf market take off. In fact, those falling feed costs to where they've been lately were really a prime factor in calf prices going to record high levels because the feed that we put into them was cheaper and cheaper. Well, now we've got to take a look at feed costs again, only this time we're going to talk about feed costs rising a little bit. In fact, if we take a look at corn prices, for instance, why have these prices been going up? Really fears of two things. One, bad weather in South America, both too wet and too dry, looking at Argentina and Brazil, have certainly led to fears of reduced smaller crop and higher prices in international markets and higher prices here as well. And lately, some fears about weather problems in the Corn Belt. Basically, summer's here and it got hot, and some places seem to be a little bit dry, and so that's led to a spike in prices as well. So if we look at the corn market, we've got corn prices using Omaha as sort of a base price. We've got cash prices that over the last 6 weeks or so have gone up about 50 cents per bushel. So we've really seen a real increase in corn prices from where we were about $3.50, $3.70 per bushel. Now we got over $4 and so forth. The real shocker, though, is in soybean meal. If we look at soybean meal prices, we've really jumped over the last 6 weeks or so from roughly $2.75 a ton to over $4 a ton. In fact, we got prices well above a year ago and actually above the 5-year average, which included those really drought-stressed, high-price years. So we've really seen a real surge in feed costs, whether we're talking corn or soybean meal. And anytime we have a surge in those prices, we really get a surge in, or we get the opposite effect in the calf market. And that's exactly what we see going on. So if we think about the feed cost side of things, we really often characterize this as a weather market. And a weather market is one of these that is very common in prices in the U.S., in the Corn Belt particularly. Once we start getting the crop planted, it really becomes a whole set of fears of whether you got enough rainfall, or it's too hot, or it's too dry, or did enough of the crop get planted in a timely manner. And you get the interaction of all of those fears, and we see prices spike up. Normally, once those fears, everybody in the market decides they're sort of unfounded and the crop is progressing and summer happens every year, then we see prices decline. And that's exactly what we see going on. But the effect in the calf market so far this year has been a pretty strong one. As we respond to higher feed costs, you get the opposite effect with calves and we get lower calf prices. So, you know, if we look overall at this market, we still have the expectation of large numbers of acres to be planted. If you have a normal kind of growing season, a trend yield, then we'll have a very large crop historically. In fact, in a week, on June 30th, USDA will release its acreage report, and that report will give us an indication on how many acres farmers planted to corn, soybeans, and a host of other crops as well. So in a week, we'll get an indication of how of the number of acres being planted. But if we take a look at the calf market a little bit, if we're looking at 500 to 600 pound number one steer calves in the Southern Plains, we've really declined from about $1.90 per pound to about $1.70 over this time period of increasing feed costs. If we take a look at Texas prices, Texas auction prices, and for example, the Texas Combined Auction Series maintained and reported by USDA AMS, we've gone from about 175 to 156 over this same kind of 6-week period, coinciding with higher feed costs and of course lower fed cattle prices over that period too. But I think we're back to having to pay attention to feed costs again going through this growing season, something we haven't had to do in the calf market over the last couple years.